90 minutes. That's how long Captain Samantha Hayes had to save 8 United States Marines. Through the shaking cockpit of her UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, she looked at the mountain ridge 12,000 feet above sea level. 8 wounded soldiers waited there with bleeding bodies, dying, calling for help. Category 5, winter storm, 80-mile-per-hour winds, minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 visibility. The radio crackled. Black Eagle 1-6, mission scrubbed. Storm too dangerous, return to base. Sam's finger hovered over the control panel. 90 minutes, 8 wounded Marines. Waiting 6 hours for the storm to pass meant they would all die. "Copy that command," she said quietly. Then she turned to her co-pilot. "We're not changing course. Hold on tight on landing." "Hayes, you're insane. We can't fly in this storm." They have 90 minutes. We're their only chance. The helicopter entered the storm. Violent turbulence shook the entire airframe. Ice began forming on the rotors. Visibility dropped to 0. Only instruments, only memory, only instinct. They had always told her, women are too emotional, they panic under pressure, can't handle emergency flights. 90 minutes. Sam's hands were rock steady on the controls. She was about to prove them all wrong. Fort Rucker, Alabama. 8 years ago. Samantha Hayes sat inside the simulator helicopter, her hands hovering over the shaking controls. She was 24 years old and training to become an emergency medical evacuation pilot. "Hayes, you ready?" The instructor's voice came through the headset. "Ready, sir?" "Scenario, mountain collision, engine failure. 5 wounded inside. You need to make an emergency landing. Begin." The simulator started shaking. Warning alarms screamed. The screens turned red. Sam's breathing quickened. Her hands gripped the controls tightly. For 2 seconds, she froze. "Hayes, move!" She pulled herself together, grabbed the controls. Auto-rotation maneuver, landing without engine power. Dangerous, but she'd learned it. The simulator hit the ground, a bit hard but safe. The instructor was silent. When she stepped outside, she heard the other pilot candidates whispering. "Did you see that?" She froze for 2 seconds. That's how women are. They get emotional under pressure. Can't handle these types of emergencies? What's she going to do when there are real wounded? Chief Instructor Anderson approached. Tall, former medevac pilot, 20 years of combat experience. "Hayes, we need to talk." They sat in his office. "You froze in that simulator," Anderson said. 2 seconds. In an emergency, 2 seconds means someone dies. "Sir, I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm being realistic." He leaned forward. "Medevac piloting isn't like other helicopter jobs. You have dying people in the back seat. You have to get them to the hospital before they bleed out. The stress is incredible." "I understand, sir. It's even harder for women. You're going to hear some pilots say women are too emotional, that they can't handle emergency stress." Sam's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, I'm here to prove those men wrong." Anderson studied her for a long moment. "Good. Because this job isn't easy, and you're going to have to be twice as good as the others just to be seen as equal." The next 3 months were hell. Sam woke up at 4 every morning, hit the gym, then went to the simulator. Every emergency scenario, every engine failure, every system malfunction, and every day she heard the other pilot candidates' comments. "She's still here? I don't think women can handle it in real missions. I hope I get a medevac assignment, as long as my pilot isn't emotional." Sam didn't respond. She just kept working. In the 6th month, final evaluation, real Black Hawk, real flight, live training in the Alabama hills. The radio crackled. "Hayes, emergency scenario, left engine failure, 6 wounded inside, land at emergency zone, begin." The engine shut down, the helicopter tilted left. Warning alarms. Sam's hands moved to the controls. This time there was no hesitation. Her muscle memory kicked in. 3 months of training, hundreds of simulations, the memory of that first freeze. Transition to auto-rotation, control descent rate, find the hill, land. The Black Hawk touched the ground softly. Perfect landing, the instructor said, surprise in his voice. When they returned to headquarters, Anderson was waiting. I saw your scores, he said. 98% precision, top 5% in emergency procedures, exceptional in tactical decision-making. Thank you, sir. That freeze, it's gone. How'd you do it? I practiced every day, sir. Forced my muscles to remember. Hands have to move before the brain thinks. Anderson almost smiled. You're graduating, Hayes, and I'm sending you to Afghanistan. Medevac missions, real wounded, real pressure. He paused. There will still be pilots who say you're too emotional, that you can't handle it in real missions. Sam met his eyes. Let them talk, sir. I'll speak with results. Bagram Airbase, Afghanistan. 18 months later. Samantha Hayes sat in the cockpit of her Black Hawk helicopter, checking warm-up procedures. She was 32 years old and had been on medevac missions in Afghanistan for 9 months. The radio crackled. Black Eagle 1-6 emergency evacuation. Helmand Province, grid November 7-2. 3 wounded soldiers, IED explosion, critical condition. Sam pressed the mic. Copy that command, taking off. Co-pilot Rodriguez looked over. Helmand, huh? High chance of taking fire. I know. We're airborne in 2 minutes. The Black Hawk rolled onto the runway, rotors spinning up, takeoff. The Afghan desert stretched below, brown, barren, deadly beautiful. 15 minutes later, the landing zone came into view. A dried riverbed, rocks surrounding it, 3 Marines on the ground, 1 very still. Black Eagle 1-6 landing zone secure, ground team reported. But Taliban 2 kilometers east, hurry. Sam brought the helicopter down. Sand clouds rose into the air. Doors opened. Crew chief jumped out. They loaded the wounded. 1 Marine's leg was gone. Another had shrapnel in his chest. The 3rd was in shock, burned. All aboard, the crew chief shouted. Sam hit the throttle. The Black Hawk lifted into the air, carrying the wounded soldiers. In the back of the helicopter, 2 medics were fighting for life. Hayes, we're losing number 1, the medic screamed. Too much blood loss. Sam looked at the control panel. 12 minutes to base, too long. Hold on tight, she said quietly. She tilted the helicopter forward, increased speed. The Black Hawk flew above limits. The engine shook. The speed indicator entered the red zone. Hayes, we're going too fast, Rodriguez said. We need to be there in 10 minutes. Hold on. 8 minutes later, Bagram came into view. Sam landed directly at the medical zone. Procedures, permissions, rules ignored. Everyone out! Run! The medical team rushed to grab the wounded. Stretchers moved rapidly toward the surgical tent. 2 hours later, the commander called her to his office. Hayes, you flew above limits. You broke the rules. You landed in the medical zone without permission. Yes, sir, I apologize. But, he continued, you saved 3 Marines. Documentation says that first soldier would have died in 10 minutes. You got him there in 8. Sam didn't respond. They say women are too emotional, the commander said, that they panic under pressure. But your file says something different. He placed the file on the desk. 9 months, 23 medevac missions, 78 wounded soldiers transported, all alive. I'm just doing my job, sir. No, he said, you're doing more than your job. Other pilots call you the Ice Queen because you never panic in emergencies. He paused. Interesting nickname for someone who's too emotional. Sam allowed a small smile. Maybe they don't know the difference between emotional and pressure, sir. The next 6 months brought more missions, more wounded soldiers, more emergencies. And with each mission, Sam's reputation grew. Other pilots talk differently now. You want Hayes? She's the best. If I get wounded, I want her. She'll bring you back. Maybe women can do this. But then winter came, and the storms, and 8 wounded Marines at 12,000 feet in the mountains, and Sam's biggest test of her career. Bagram Airbase, Afghanistan. December, winter. Samantha Hayes stood in the operations center, looking at the weather map on the wall. A large red mass was moving toward northern Afghanistan. Category 5 storm, the meteorologist said. 80-mile-per-hour winds, minus 15 degrees. It'll reach us in 6 hours. Sam frowned. Any units in the mountains? 3rd Brigade, Panjshir Valley, but they should be down in 6 hours. The radio crackled. Emergency! Emergency! This is Falcon 3-4. We're ambushed. 8 wounded, 4 critical. Need immediate evacuation. The operations center fell silent. The commander grabbed the mic. Falcon 3-4, give your position. Grid Papa 8-9. Mountain Ridge, 12,000 feet elevation. Taliban retreated but might come back. The meteorologist looked at the map. Commander, that position, the storm will reach there in 1 hour. The commander turned to Sam. Hayes, you're our best medevac pilot. What's your assessment? Sam studied the map. Papa 8-9, narrow mountain ridge, already dangerous landing in winter conditions, in a Category 5 storm, suicide mission. We can get there before the storm hits, she said slowly. But we have 15 minutes to evacuate and get back, if the storm arrives early. Blind flight, co-pilot Rodriguez said. 0 visibility, mountain landing zone. Hayes, this is impossible. The medic stepped forward. What's the condition of the wounded? 4 critical, 4 serious, the radio operator reported. Doc says the critical ones have 90 minutes, maybe less. 90 minutes, Sam murmured. Storm lasts 6 hours. Waiting for it to pass, they all die. The commander shook his head. Mission scrubbed. Storm too dangerous. We'll wait 6 hours. Sir. Hayes, that's an order. We can't fly helicopters in that storm. I won't risk the crew. Sam insisted. Sir, 8 soldiers are dying out there. And I won't get you killed on that mountain, the commander shouted. Then he took a deep breath. Hayes, I understand, but the answer is no. Mission scrubbed. Sam looked around the room. Other pilots turned away. No one would volunteer. Rodriguez came over, spoke quietly. Hayes, commander's right. You can't fly in that storm. Rotor icing, 0 visibility, mountain landing zone, 1 mistake, and we crash. I know, Sam said. Those 8 soldiers, it's terrible. But a suicide mission won't save them. Sam fell silent. She looked at the meteorology map. The storm was approaching, 80 miles per hour. Then she looked at the wounded soldier's position, 12,000 feet, narrow ridge, 90 minutes. Women are too emotional, they had said. They panic under pressure, can't handle emergency flights. Sam's jaw tightened. Rodriguez, she said quietly, prep the Black Hawk. Rodriguez froze. What? Hayes, commander said mission scrubbed. I didn't hear that order. Hayes, you're insane. They have 90 minutes. If we don't go, they die. I can't live with that. And if you die on that mountain? Sam looked at him. At least I tried. 10 minutes later, Sam was in the Black Hawk's cockpit, Rodriguez beside her, silent but ready. Engine started, rotors spinning, the radio crackled. Black Eagle 1-6, command. What are you doing? Sam pressed the mic. Command, emergency evacuation mission, heading to Papa 8-9 position. Hayes, I scrubbed the mission. That was an order. Didn't copy last order, Commander. Communication breaking up, flying out. Hayes, Sam shut off the radio. She looked at Rodriguez. If you want to turn back, get out now. Rodriguez took a deep breath. My career's ending over this too, you know. I know. Damn it, Hayes, let's go. The Black Hawk rolled onto the runway. To the west, a black cloud mass approached. The storm. Sam hit the throttle. The helicopter lifted into the air, flying toward the storm. When the Black Hawk entered the storm, Sam felt violent turbulence shake the helicopter. Jesus Christ, Rodriguez shouted. Hayes, this is insane. The helicopter veered left. Sam gripped the controls, corrected. Wind speed indicator, 75 miles, 80, 85. Rotor icing starting, Rodriguez reported, maxing out de-icing system. The windshield turned white, snow, zero visibility. Going to instruments, Sam said, GPS and radar only, no visual. The Black Hawk plunged into the storm. Violent turbulence threw the helicopter up, down, left, right. The engine whined, metal groaned. "Hayes, this is way beyond limits," Rodriguez shouted. "The helicopter's going to break apart." "It'll hold. Hold on tight," the crew chief called from the back. "Cockpit, how long is this going to last? Everything's flying around back here." 5 minutes, Sam shouted. 5 minutes to Papa 89. But the storm was getting worse. Wind hit 90, temperature minus 20. Ice sticking to rotor blades. "Icing at dangerous levels," Rodriguez reported, losing lift. "Hayes, we need to turn back." "We can't turn back," Sam shouted. 8 soldiers dying out there." The helicopter tilted left. Violent turbulence, warning alarms screaming. Sam gripped the controls, muscle memory, hundreds of simulations, hundreds of emergencies. That first freeze at Fort Rucker, she'd promised herself never again. Her hands turned to rock, steady, precise, cold. Too emotional, they'd said. Panics under pressure. Sam's heart rate, 60 beats per minute, normal, calm, controlled. "Papa 89, 2 miles, she reported. "Can't locate landing zone, zero visibility." "What's radar saying?" Rodriguez checked the screen. "Mountain ridge, 12,000 feet, narrow area, cliffs on both sides." "Landing zone width?" 6 meters, maybe less. "Black Hawk span?" 5.5 meters. Sam took a deep breath. 6 meter zone, 5.5 meter helicopter, 2 feet margin of error. "In zero visibility," Rodriguez shouted. "Hayes, we can't see. Only radar. How are you going to land?" "By memory and radar data." "You're insane." Sam slowed the helicopter. Descent began. Radar screen. Mountain approaching. 200 feet. The helicopter shook. Strong wind pushed left. Sam compensated. Corrected right. 100 feet. Snow on windshield. White, nothing visible, only radar, only numbers. 50 feet, Rodriguez's breathing quickened. "Hayes, you're landing blind." "I know, shut up and read altitude." 30 feet, 25, 20, sudden wind gust. Helicopter veered right. Sam corrected quickly. But too much, too little. 15 feet, 10, 5, the Black Hawk touched ground, hard but safe. 1 second of silence. Then Rodriguez. "We're down! Jesus Christ, we're down!" Crew chief opened doors. "Out! Load the wounded!" Marines ran from the landing zone. 8 stretchers, 8 wounded soldiers, some still, some moaning. Sam kept the engine running, rotors spinning, storm pounding the helicopter. "Hurry!" she shouted. "Storm's getting worse." 2 minutes, all wounded aboard. "All loaded," crew chief reported. Sam hit the throttle. The Black Hawk lifted into the air, but takeoff was worse than landing. Wind hit 95. Helicopter shook violently. Icing reached critical level. "Engine temperature rising," Rodriguez reported. "De-icing system maxed, but not enough. It needs to hold 5 more minutes. 5 minutes to base." From the back, the medic's voice, "I'm losing number 1. Too much blood loss." Sam tilted the helicopter forward. Maximum speed. Limits ignored. "Hayes, this speed makes icing worse," Rodriguez shouted. "That soldier has 4 minutes. Speed or icing. Pick one." Rodriguez went silent. Sam flew, through the storm, through ice and wind and deadly danger, but her hands stayed steady. Too emotional, they'd said. Sam smiled, bitter, but a smile. Bagram Base appeared 3 minutes later. "Emergency landing," Sam shouted into the radio. 8 critical wounded. Be ready." The helicopter landed in the medical zone. Doors opened. Medical team rushed in. 8 stretchers came out. 8 wounded soldiers, all breathing. Sam shut down the engines. Her hands released the controls. They were shaking for the first time, 8 years later, after the mission ended, after it was safe. "Hayes," Rodriguez said quietly, You landed without seeing the landing zone." "Yes." That was impossible." Sam looked at him. "No, just difficult." Commander's office, 1 hour later. Samantha Hayes stood at attention. Her uniform was soaked with snow, ice crystals in her hair. The commander sat at his desk, looking at the file. His face was red with anger. "Hayes," he said quietly, a dangerous quiet. "I told you the mission was scrubbed." "Yes, sir." "I ordered you to return to base." "Yes, sir." "And you ignored my orders, shut off the radio, flew without permission." Sam didn't respond. The commander stood, walked around the desk, stood in front of Sam. "Do you know what this means? Insubordination. Your career is over. Dishonorable discharge. Maybe court-martial." "I understand, sir." "You understand," the commander shouted. "You and your crew could have died on that mountain, blind landing in a Category 5 storm with 2 feet margin of error." "Yes, sir. We knew the risk." "Then why? Why did you disobey my orders?" Sam looked into his eyes for the first time. "Because 8 soldiers were dying out there, sir. And waiting for the storm to pass meant they would all die. Your orders were legal, but they weren't right." The commander stepped back. "Weren't right? You don't get to decide if an order is right, Captain." "Yes, sir. You're correct. And I accept the consequences." Silence. The commander returned to his desk, sat down. He looked at the file for a long time. 8 wounded soldiers," he said finally. 4 critical. Doctors say if you'd brought them 15 minutes later, at least 3 would have died." He paused. "But you brought them in 12 minutes, in a Category 5 storm, with a blind landing, and they're all alive." Sam didn't respond. "One of the pilots," the commander continued, "I know they call you the Ice Queen, because you never panic in emergencies." He placed the file on the desk. "Interesting nickname. Because at this base 8 years ago, instructors said women were too emotional, that they panic under pressure, that they couldn't handle emergency flights." "Yes, sir, they did say that." "And today you flew the most dangerous medevac mission at this base. A mission any pilot would have refused, because it was impossible." The commander stood. "Hayes, I could court-martial you. Insubordination, refusing orders." "I understand, sir. But those 8 Marines are alive, and their families will have their children home for Christmas. Because of you." Long silence. "This time," the commander said, "I'm putting a warning in your file. Just a warning. But Hayes, never disobey my orders again. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Now go, shower, rest. You're off duty for 2 days." Sam saluted, walked to the door. "Hayes." She stopped, turned. The commander had a small smile. "Those people who said women are too emotional, they were wrong, weren't they?" Sam smiled for a moment. "Yes, sir, they were wrong." When she stepped outside, Rodriguez and the crew chief were waiting. "What happened?" Rodriguez asked. "Court-martial?" "Warning, just a warning." "Thank God." The crew chief stepped forward. "Hayes, that landing, I've been flying 8 years. That was the most incredible flying I've ever seen." "I just did my job." "No," he said. "You did more than your job. You saved 8 lives." That night, when Sam entered the mess hall, voices stopped. Pilots looked at her, crew chiefs, medics. Then, from the back corner, one person stood up, then another, then another. The entire mess hall stood up, and they applauded. Sam stopped, surprised. Rodriguez came over, whispered, "Word spread. Blind landing in storm. 8 lives. Everyone knows." The applause continued, long, real. Sam swallowed, her eyes moistened. Years ago at Fort Rucker, they'd said too emotional. Maybe they were right. Maybe emotions were what you needed to know what's right. Fort Rucker, Alabama. 6 months later. Samantha Hayes stood at the front of the classroom, looking at 20 young female pilot candidates. "This morning," she said, "we'll talk about emergency procedures, specifically decision-making under pressure." A hand rose from the back row. A young woman, early 20s, serious face. "Captain Hayes, may I ask a question?" "Of course." Some instructors say women are too emotional in emergencies, that they panic under pressure. What do you think?" The classroom fell silent. Everyone looked at Sam. Sam smiled, bitter but warm. "Let me tell you a story," she said. 6 months ago in Afghanistan, I was in a Category 5 winter storm. 8 wounded soldiers were on a mountain ridge, 12,000 feet elevation. They had 90 minutes to live. She paused. My commander said mission scrubbed, too dangerous, wait for the storm to pass, but the storm would last 6 hours. Those soldiers couldn't wait 6 hours. I flew, in zero visibility, blind landing, 2 feet margin of error, and I brought them all back. The young woman leaned forward. "But how? Didn't they panic?" Sam shook her head. "Panic? No, because panic and emotion are two different things." She walked to the board, wrote 2 words. "Panic emotional." "Panic," she said, "is losing control, surrendering to fear, freezing. Emotional is caring deeply, valuing others' lives more than your own. That's what saved those 8 soldiers, the fact that I couldn't bear to let them die." She turned to the class. "When male pilots say women are too emotional, we should actually use that as a compliment, because emotions show us what's right, what matters." "But," she quickly added, "emotions and skill are separate things. I didn't land on that mountain with my emotions. I landed with hundreds of hours of training, with muscle memory, with technical skill." She looked at the young woman. "So my answer is, yes, be emotional, care, but also be the best pilot, train harder than the others, because one day someone will trust their life to your skills." "And on that day, did you save them because you were too emotional, or because you were the best pilot?" "Both, always both." After class, the young woman approached Sam. "Captain Hayes, I still feel like instructors don't take me seriously. They say I'm too small, too emotional." Sam looked at her. She saw herself 8 years ago, 24 years old, doubtful, afraid. "What's your name?" "Emily, ma'am, Emily Martinez." "Okay, Emily, I'm going to tell you something, and never forget it." She leaned forward. "They tell you it's impossible. Good, because impossible just means it hasn't been done yet. 8 years ago, they told me I couldn't handle emergency flights. 2 months ago, they told me I couldn't fly in that storm." She smiled. "And now those 8 soldiers are home with their families, because I didn't listen to impossible. Don't listen either, Emily. Work, train, be the best, and one day when they say you're too emotional, you'll smile, because those emotions will be what saves someone." Emily's eyes shined. "Thank you, Captain." Sam watched the young woman leave the classroom. Then she looked out the window. Fort Rucker flight line, Black Hawk helicopters, young pilots flying. 10 years from now, Emily Martinez might fly in her own storm, and she'll win. Because too emotional was never a weakness. It was always a strength.